Africa is a land of immense potential, rich in natural resources, blessed with a young population and experiencing rapidly growing economies. Yet, in recent years, one country has emerged as a dominant force across the continent: China. From massive infrastructure projects to trade deals worth billions, China's footprint in Africa is undeniable. But beneath the promise of development, some experts warn of hidden dangers. Could China's growing influence pose a serious threat to Africa's future? Let's explore. Our story begins with a grand vision: the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. This ambitious project, launched by President Xi Jinping in 2013, aims to connect China with Europe, Asia, and Africa through a network of roads, railways, and trade routes. With an initial investment of $40 billion, the BRI represents a significant opportunity for Africa, promising much-needed infrastructure, jobs, and economic growth. However, as the continent eagerly embraces these advancements, it's crucial to look beyond the headlines. First, we must address the elephant in the room: debt dependency. As part of the BRI, China has undertaken numerous major infrastructure projects across Africa. From the construction of highways in Kenya to the Addis Ababa-Djibouti Railway in Ethiopia. While these projects undoubtedly boost connectivity and trade, they come at a cost. Many of these projects are financed through Chinese loans, often with high interest rates and stringent repayment conditions. African nations, already grappling with substantial debt burdens, may find themselves in a precarious situation. When faced with loan repayments, countries like Zambia, once seen as Africa's economic star, have defaulted on Chinese loans multiple times, leading to the seizure of strategic assets such as airports and mines. This raises concerns about a debt trap where African nations lose control of vital infrastructure to China. The implications are alarming. As more countries fall into debt distress, China's influence could grow exponentially, potentially compromising their sovereignty and turning Africa into a near. To mitigate this risk, African governments must diversify their borrowing sources and ensure that loans align with national development priorities and repayment capacities. But the story doesn't end there. Beyond debt, another danger looms: resource exploitation. Africa is endowed with abundant natural resources, including vast mineral deposits, fertile lands, and substantial water reserves. These resources hold the key to industrialization, economic growth, and poverty reduction. However, there is a dark side to the story. Despite Africa's resource wealth, many nations remain trapped in a cycle of poverty and underdevelopment. A significant portion of the wealth generated by these resources often flows out of the continent, fueling inequality and hindering progress. Moreover, the environmental costs associated with resource extraction are substantial, leading to land degradation, water pollution, and climate change impacts. As China seeks to secure access to these valuable resources, there's a risk that African nations will be exploited for their raw materials, perpetuating a cycle of dependency and underdevelopment. This raises concerns about whether China's engagement in Africa will lead to equitable partnerships or simply another form of resource extraction. To safeguard their interests, African countries need to negotiate fair deals that prioritize local processing and manufacturing, ensuring that the benefits of resource extraction extend beyond mere financial gains. However, it's not just about raw materials and infrastructure. There's another concerning aspect of China's growing influence in Africa: local industry displacement. Africa has immense potential when it comes to manufacturing and industry. With a large and youthful population, the continent can harness its human capital to drive economic growth and create jobs. However, China's massive industrial capacity poses a significant challenge. Chinese goods, often produced at lower costs due to government subsidies and cheaper labor, flood African markets, undercutting local industries. This influx can overwhelm African manufacturers, making it difficult for them to compete on price. As a result, small and medium enterprises, which are the backbone of many African economies, often struggle and even collapse. This trend raises concerns about the long-term viability of African industries and the potential loss of jobs. If left unchecked, the dominance of Chinese goods could stifle local manufacturing, hindering industrialization and sustainable development in Africa. To protect their industrial sectors, African nations need to implement policies that support local industries, such as import tariffs or subsidies, while simultaneously working to improve their manufacturing capabilities through investments in technology and skills development. But the story doesn't end at the economic front. There's another angle that demands our attention: political influence and governance. Africa has made significant strides in promoting democracy and good governance. However, China's growing influence raises concerns about potential setbacks in this area. China's approach to foreign relations is often characterized by a non-interference principle, which means it generally avoids involvement in the domestic politics of other countries. While this can be seen as a positive aspect, as it respects the sovereignty of African nations, it also presents challenges. By not speaking out against undemocratic practices or human rights abuses, China could inadvertently be seen as endorsing or even encouraging authoritarian tendencies among some African leaders. Furthermore, China's preference for dealing with strong leaders or governments, regardless of their legitimacy, could embolden authoritarian tendencies. In countries like Zimbabwe, for instance, China's close ties with the ruling regime have been criticized for perpetuating corruption and undermining democratic processes. It remains to be seen whether China's growing influence in Africa will have a detrimental impact on democratic values and the rule of law. If not properly managed, this could set back Africa's hard-earned progress towards greater political stability and representation. Moreover, the story takes another turn with military and strategic expansion. While China's official explanation for its military presence in Africa is focused on peacekeeping and anti-piracy operations, some analysts believe there's more to the story. The rapid pace of China's military engagement, coupled with its significant investments in ports and logistics across the continent, raises questions about ulterior motives. Critics argue that these investments could serve dual purposes, allowing China to gather intelligence or positioning itself for a strategic advantage in times of conflict or crisis. The implications are profound. If African ports and military installations were to be used by China for nefarious purposes, it would undermine regional stability and security. Furthermore, the growing military cooperation between China and some African nations could exacerbate existing conflicts or spark new ones, drawing China into a quagmire that could destabilize the region. To prevent such scenarios, it's crucial that African nations exercise caution when dealing with China's military overtures, prioritizing regional stability and peace over short-term gains. So, what is the way forward for Africa? How can the continent navigate this complex relationship with China and mitigate the risks, while harnessing the opportunities presented by China's Belt and Road Initiative? First and foremost, diversification is key. Africa needs to cultivate strong partnerships with multiple countries and regions around the world, not just China. By diversifying its diplomatic and economic ties, Africa can reduce its reliance on any single power, whether it's China, the United States, or any other country. This will ensure that no single nation can dictate terms or exert undue influence on the continent. Furthermore, African governments must prioritize infrastructure projects that serve the long-term development goals of their countries. While flashy projects like high-speed rail lines may grab headlines, it's essential to focus on projects that address critical needs such as healthcare, education, and transportation. Governments should invest in infrastructure that directly benefits their citizens and contributes to sustainable development rather than solely focusing on vanity projects. Additionally, Africa has abundant natural resources that are crucial for its industrialization and economic growth. However, many of these resources are exported in their raw forms, depriving African countries of the potential profits from value addition. To mitigate this issue, African nations should prioritize investments in local processing and manufacturing. By refining and manufacturing their resources within their borders, African countries can generate more income, create jobs, and reduce their dependence on exporting raw materials. This can foster a more diversified economy and contribute to sustainable development. Furthermore, it's vital that African countries strengthen their governance institutions to ensure that investments from China and other countries align with national priorities and benefit the broader public interest. This includes promoting transparency in decision-making, ensuring accountability, and tackling corruption head-on. Good governance is crucial for attracting responsible foreign investment and safeguarding against potential exploitation. Moreover, fostering collaboration between governments and civil society is essential. Civil society organizations can play a vital role in monitoring Chinese activities, advocating for citizen interests, and holding both governments and businesses accountable. By working together, governments and civil society can ensure that China's influence in Africa serves the best interests of the continent and its people. In conclusion, China's Belt and Road Initiative presents both challenges and opportunities for Africa. While the initiative offers the potential for infrastructure development, increased trade, and economic growth, it also poses risks such as debt dependency, resource exploitation, local industry displacement, political influence, and strategic implications. To navigate this complex landscape successfully, Africa must diversify its partnerships, prioritize sustainable development, strengthen governance, invest in local processing and manufacturing, and foster collaboration between governments and civil society. By taking these proactive steps, Africa can harness the benefits of engagement with China while mitigating potential risks, ultimately ensuring that its future remains firmly in its own hands. Thank you for watching this episode. We hope you found it informative and insightful. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe for more thought-provoking content. Your engagement helps us continue producing quality videos that explore the most important issues of our time. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.